Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Wraith, and today I'm going to be going over my top 3 pieces of competitive advice for beginners and veterans. If you're a super veteran, you'll know this anyway, but it might be worth a watch just in case you don't. So, yeah, these bits of advice are things that I've learned and things that I always apply before going to anything competitive, whether it's practice for a competitive event in the future or going to said event. And yeah, if you apply these, you will do better than if you hadn't have applied these points. So, starting from the bottom, number 3, we have got always try to have a combat leader. Now, what I mean by a combat leader is someone who can do well in close combat, right? If you do not have a combat leader, at least try and make them so. So my point being, if you are bringing Rivendell and you brought Gandalf the Grey and he's your only hero of legend, always make sure he's sat on a horse, because that brings his miserable 1 attack to 2 attack on the charge, and then he charges in, knocks him to the ground when he wins with his superior fight value, and he's got 4 strikes onto them. Okay, so at least you've got a chance. But if you've got the option, try and bring something else of the same tier. So if I'm going to bring a Ring Wraith who's a hero of valor, I'm going to ensure I've either got a hero of legend to be my leader or another hero of valor who can do well in close combat. Because there is a scenario called Contest of Champions, which does turn up quite a lot in events, as much as I don't think it should, but it only counts towards your leader kills. So how many kills your leader gets, and it's only in close combat, mind you. So you can't have Legolas sat at the back shooting everyone, because he will not rack up any melee kills. So all you have to do is pay 10 points if you've got Legolas as your leader, stick him on a horse, and for all the other games he could be shooting away on horseback, but in a game where he has to get stuck in, he can do on horse and get the extra attacks, because he's only got 2 attacks. So it bumps up to 3, making him pretty solid. 6 attacks when he knocks them down. That's it. So, my second piece of advice, number 2, is if the event allows it, because a lot of them do actually, surprisingly, always, if the option is there, bring both a good and evil force. Obviously, if you can't afford 2 armies, that's absolutely fine. But if you can, always try. Because a lot of good versus good, you can find counters to your list, whilst you won't find them in evil. There'll still be a couple, but it's a lot harder. And on the flip side, evil versus evil. So if you're playing Goblin Town, for example, and come up against Angmar, all your goblins are now Courage 1 near their ring wraiths, and all their courage shenanigans will absolutely tear you a new one and their entire terror-causing army. Same with Return of the King Legendary Legion Good. If you've only got them, you might end up fighting Rivendell, who are all Courage 5 or 6 if they've got +1 to their courage. So you might as well, you lose one of the biggest parts of having your ghosts, the main reason they cost so many points. Of course, if you've got a force that you think can take all other factions, then by all means just bring that force. But I would suggest bringing 1 good, 1 evil. I will do, always, if the option is there. Because a lot of my armies can be countered by another evil army, and quite nicely. But I do have my take on everyone lists. For example, if I'm running dwarves, big example, if you're running Iron Hills, okay, and you've got option to have good and evil, you do not have an evil force, you come up against Army of the Dead. Your dwarves and all those points you paid for their defense, 8 goodness, is down the drain because they're attacking your courage 4, which is actually upsetting. If you just bring an evil force of Serpent Horde, you can shoot those ghosts or whatever, You're at the point where your points are different, so you're paying Serpent Horde, so you're actually paying 6 points, 7 points a warrior. Yeah, so you've got so many more bodies, so you can grab all those objectives compared to those ghosts. That's it. Now, moving on to my third and final point, and this is really important. Now, a lot of newer players tend to spend their might quite quickly, okay, and that's fine. If you need to, you need to. Okay? But before you spend any points of might, so if you lose a priority roll, he's got a lot of cavalry, you're running dwarves or whatever, just have a think before you call that heroic move. do I need to call it? Can I take this one charge? Or if he wins priority, or if you win priority and he calls a heroic move, don't always instant counter it, because that means he spent a point of might to do a move, and then you get to move the rest of your army. So always consider, can you take that? Do you have to spend that might? On the flip side again, if you're in combat and you fluff your roll to wound people, do you really need to kill those 2 warriors this turn? Or can you make do with not and just keeping the fluff roll? Yeah. So, that means if your opponent is spending more might than you, and then you do, and you've got even equal the amount of might, you will have might at the end game. And the amount of games I have won because I've got might at the end game that my opponent does not is, well, every single game pretty much. Every game I have might in the end game and they do not, I clear up. Because at that point I'm deciding when I'm moving, I'm deciding when they're moving, I can strike when I want to, I can heroic combat when I want to, things like that. Which is why heroes like Aragorn are absolutely insane with their mighty hero getting 1 might free every turn. The Gambling Banner is still fantastic just to have that might in the end game. But you can still save your might. You can still have 1, maybe 2 heroes, or 1 hero with 3 might sat at the back, and you're just not going to touch his might unless you're going to lose the game. And then at the end game, you've got, well, I've still got 3 might left, you've got none. I can do what I want. So trust me, always have some kind of reserve for the end game. Because it could even be to the point where you get a heroic move and sit on an objective and grab it and win the game. A heroic march on a captain to shoot yourself across the board. A heroic move, anything. Even a heroic combat that can fling you into the leader and get that sweet, sweet couple of extra points for taking down their leader. There we go. So, they're my 3 points. Always have some kind of combat leader or make them so. Always bring good and evil if possible, unless you've got a come all takers kind of list. And always have a reserve of might for the end game. They're my 3 competitive tips. If you think I've missed anything, or if you don't agree with anything, do say in the comment section down below. I like having a little debate. And if you want to talk about it more in depth, do join my Discord server. But if you enjoyed the video, do consider liking, and if you're feeling especially sad today, do consider subscribing. But even if you don't do either of those things, I still hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Thank you ever so much for watching my video. Just a quick note here, if you're interested in horror games or any kind of gaming like that, even Total War, mainly horror though, do consider checking out my other channel that I've just started called Wraith Realms for that kind of content. And if you want to support me and what I do to give you bigger and better content, do consider signing up to my Patreon, and you might even get a free sexy t-shirt in the process. Thank you and goodbye.